Mr. Speaker, we learn a lot from the life of President Mwai Kibaki. First, I want to thank the people of Odaya for entrusting a young person to the position of leadership in terms of their MP, Mr. Speaker. President Mwai Kibaki assumed the role of CEO of KANU at the age of 31, went ahead to become an MP at 32, and served for 50 uninterrupted years as a member of parliament. And it is through that incubation of ascending to a position of leadership early that he was able to refine himself, of course through experience, to become the kind of leader, a towering leader that he became when he assumed the presidency of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I remember President Mwai Kibaki for the free primary education, and I remember when he was campaigning, his competitor then actually told the nation that it was impossible to offer free basic education. But President Mwai Kibaki went ahead to prove them wrong when he, of course, gave the people of Kenya an opportunity to go to school without paying. Also, most of us, Mr. Speaker, went to universities and got places in various universities, courtesy of the policies of President Mwai Kibaki for opening up space in our private public universities, Mr. Speaker, which previously were hedged on bed capacity, and also opened up the economy to be able to absorb capital from private sector for establishment of private institutions. But Mr. Speaker, I also want to remember President Kibaki more in regards to the economy. Across all dimensions of the economy, President Mwai Kibaki's legacy, Mr. Speaker, is towering. He got an economy that had revenues of around 200 billion Kenya shillings. By the time he left after 10 years, he had uplifted that revenue by 500% to 1 trillion Kenya shillings. The current regime under President Uhuru Kenyatta has only managed to move that revenue from 1 trillion to around 1.6 trillion, which is hardly 60%. Work that Kibaki did in half a year has taken the current regime an entire 10 years to achieve. President Mwai Kibaki got our country and our economy at a point where the total debt was around 600 billion Kenya shillings. Mr. Speaker, he left us with a debt of 1.8 trillion Kenya shillings, borrowing a net of 1.2 trillion Kenya shillings in a span of 10 years. But Mr. Speaker, contrasting with this regime, that debt from 1.8, we have actually surpassed even the limits we have set in this House. If you add even the guarantees, now the total debt is going towards 12 trillion. Mr. Speaker, also, economically speaking, President Mwai Kibaki left our country when the poverty level was around 39%. Mr. Speaker, as we talk now, Kenyans who face multidimensional poverty are just around 63%. Two-thirds of Kenyans' households, Mr. Speaker, are living in one way or the other in poverty. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, the country that President Kibaki left that was booming has, of course, descended into poverty. On the other sector, Mr. Speaker, which is more visible, President Mwai Kibaki gave a very good environment for our private sector to thrive. Mr. Speaker, most of the banks and most of the companies in the private sector that we are very proud of as Kenyans, and categorically like Equity Bank, like Family Bank, like many other financial institutions around insurance, Mr. Speaker, they got their operating license during President Kibaki's time. All this, Mr. Speaker, he never managed, Mr. Speaker, to ask for any stakes from these companies. And Mr. Speaker, because I see almost my time is up, among the many qualities we can learn from President Mwai Kibaki is that it is important for leaders not to be conflicted when they are leading. President Mwai Kibaki never did business with government when he was president of Kenya. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that it is actually criminal for this regime to every time keep on comparing their performance with that of President Mwai Kibaki. It is an insult, Mr. Speaker, to his legacy. There is no comparison. We can only contrast. And lastly, the selflessness. President Mwai Kibaki never named any street on his name. Actually, when people approached him to name Thika Road Superhighway on his name, he...
Member for your...
Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance. And on behalf of the people of Emuhaya, on behalf of my own self, on behalf of the teachers of Kenya, and on behalf of the workers of Kenya, let me take this opportunity to send my apt condolences to the family, friends, Kenyans, and even relatives of the late family of Mwai Kibaki. Honorable Mwai Kibaki, the third president of Kenya, was actually an epitome of change in this particular country. He came to power at a time when we had had the long rule of Moi, but he came up with several changes which made the Kenyans to be proud of his rule. Honorable Speaker, this is the president who stopped the roadside declarations and policies which had been the norm of President Moi and which Kenyans were not very happy about. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Kibaki and President Kibaki reduced his motorcade. For those who saw Moi's motorcades, and the time we spent on the roads as teachers and students, when Moi was about to pass, sometimes we would spend the whole day, he reduced his motorcade and made it very easy and very ample, very simple for a presidential motorcade to pass on the Kenyan roads. Honorable Speaker, on internal and external borrowing, this was a remarkable president who made the loans to be very cheap, especially for workers and more so for teachers. For the first time, we saw banks, more so some banks which teachers could not go to, like the Barclays Bank and Standard Bank, come to staff rooms and hawk loans to teachers and workers of this country. We can never forget this. He made the loans to be cheap and to be available for the smallest man in the country. Honorable Speaker, President Kibaki went ahead to make sure that the teachers got better pay and worked under better conditions of working. There is remembered for the 17.9 billion which he gave the teachers of Kenya as what was called the harmonized salaries between the civil servants and the teachers of Kenya. And that's changed the life of teachers till today. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Kibaki and President Kibaki worked on the minimum wage for Kenyan workers, and is the one who raised it almost to the level that was wanted by the international standards and the ILO. And to date, it has been improved such that the minimum wage stands at what is required by the ILO. President Kibaki did not interfere with trade unions. It was very easy to negotiate as trade unions with the president and government. And at no time when we negotiated for teacher salaries did we even meet President Kibaki. We met ministers and other officers within the system, and the deal would be done. We would never meet the president himself. He believed in people. He believed in the people he gave office. Honorable Speaker, I cannot forget the fact that President Kibaki did a lot on infrastructure. In Emuhaya, for instance, he's the one who came up with the Stendikisa-Humsalaba Road, which is now in bad condition and which we are asking the current government to make. He also came up with the road from the Buyangu at Rodis Junction to Ekero, which is serving the people of Emuhaya, and we remember him for that. Honorable Speaker, President Kibaki professionalized the civil service and also professionalized the cabinet. For the first time, we heard that people were being told to text their CVs to the president to see where they can be placed in the ministries. This was powerful, and we loved it. There was meritocracy, and merit ruled the day. Today, we see people being appointed not because they are professionals, but because they are good friends of those who are in power. This we cannot hide from President Mwai Kibaki. Honorable Speaker, I must say that this is the president who braved the issue of free primary school, and which has now grown to subsidized secondary school, which we enjoy today. He was very brave because he said within the first 100 days, he will have brought free primary school. I remember when I met President Uhuru after Kibaki left the throne, I told him that Kibaki has done it all. The best you could do now was to do three things: that you must make sure that the secondary school education is free. You must also make sure that teachers are paid well, and make sure that you build the railway. The rest is a story for another day. Honorable Speaker, President Kibaki was the leader of the opposition. Today, people fear to be in the opposition. This, I should say that we go to the next election, those who will be in the opposition must remain in the opposition, so that we have a check and balance in Parliament. Hey, you guys, what's happening? I must say, Honorable Speaker, that President Kibaki also is remembered for handing over power to his next president.